Vâng, thưa quý vị, chúng tôi xin cảm ơn sự theo dõi trở lại của quý vị khán thính giả. Tôi rất là hân hạnh hôm nay xin được tiếp chuyện với tác giả Josh Silverman về cuốn sách mới nhất của anh với tựa đề đó là Legends of AMUN RA, thưa quý vị, The Emerald Tablet. Đây là tập 1 và ngồi kế bên tôi đó là phu nhân của Josh Silverman, Dominic Nguyễn Silverman. Trước phần quảng cáo thương mại thì chúng tôi cũng chia sẻ về cái tiến trình để mà viết cho anh, gọi là viết cái series này có tới 7 tập lận. Và anh cũng chia sẻ rằng là có những nhà văn mà anh rất là ái mộ và rất là ngưỡng mộ như là Martin R. Và ông là một cái người tác giả rất là nổi tiếng, và mới trong 4-5 năm qua thì trên đài HBO người ta có chuyển cái sách của ông, cái chuyện của ông trở thành phim. Và như tôi có thường nói trong chương trình của chúng tôi là chúng tôi rất là mê cái show Game of Thrones mà được trình chiếu trên đài HBO trong 4 năm qua, nên anh cũng chia sẻ là anh rất là mê cái chương trình đó, cũng như là anh đã đọc hết tất cả những cái tập sách cho Game of Thrones. Và cũng có một số tác giả nhà văn khác mà anh cũng rất là ngưỡng mộ như là Tom Clancy mà ông vừa mới qua đời vào tuần trước, thưa quý vị, và cũng có một số nhà văn nổi tiếng khác. Thì tôi muốn hỏi Dominic là trong vai trò là một người vợ, khi mà chồng của Dominic spend so much time ngồi trong phòng viết tới 7 tập như vậy, thì làm sao mà chị nghĩ chắc cũng khó, là tại vì khi mà cái thời gian mà spend trong phòng để mà nghĩ ra những cái nhân vật viết thành 7 tập sách thì trong vai trò là một người vợ phải thông cảm, phải hiểu biết, phải nhẫn nại, phải gọi là support, phải this and that. What else do you do?
We look at this more of a family. I don't know if legacy is the right word, nhưng mà a family business. He's the author, he's the writer of the series. But of course, like anything, when you have something good, it needs to be out there. So my main role of this business is to certainly focus on the business side, cái marketing, and just to get more exposure, publicity, such as this, being on the show today with Tố Uyên. So primarily just to develop different arenas and mấy cái cơ hội để mình được
phổ biến
đi làm những cái khác, như là một cái sách eventually mình có thể
chuyển qua tiếng Việt
rồi mình làm phim, làm về cái animation, về cái đồ chơi, and also online games. Thì đó là cái
long term goals.
Vậy.
So who would you say is the primary audience for your books? Is it kids or is it more for young adults?
Excuse me. I would say about 16 years or older. It's not really for kids because there are some intimate scenes, some adult content.
Okay.
But, if you're 15, 16 years or older, you'll definitely have no problem reading it. And as the series grows, the content will become more extreme, I would say. A lot of it is based on history, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm inspired by a lot of things that happened, during the Vietnam War, during the Civil War, U.S. Civil War, during certain revolutions. One of the main themes of the book and the whole series is what's the difference between annexation and unification, and how does brother versus brother, a civil war, kind of affect the relationships of not just a country, but people in general. So the whole series takes on that kind of level of epic scope. So as the characters grow, become more mature, and get more involved in the conflict, so will the action, and so will the level of maturity of the series.
Your story is set in both Egypt and a fictional planet called Potora?
Yeah.
If I say it wrong, please correct me. Can you describe this planet Potora?
Yeah, it's kind of based basically the premise is, what if ancient Greece and ancient Egypt were allowed to flourish without being conquered? So, they would have increased technology just the same as we would, but a lot of their mythology, a lot of their religious views would still be similar. And a lot of their laws and the way things were set up would be similar. So you can think of it as kind of a Blade Runner, kind of dark industrial mechanical society, but with a very ancient, very deeply rooted religious sect that powers it.
Very interesting. I'm so anxious and excited that hopefully this will turn to a movie soon because it sounds really awesome.
Thank you.
What takes place in Egypt? Is it in the present?
Yeah, in the story, everything in Egypt is actually in the present. And it deals with the archaeological dig and when they find the Emerald Tablet. But after the main character, Leors, finds the Emerald Tablet and is taken to Potora, what remains is his parents. And we kind of go through the struggle of parents dealing with loss of a child. And what do they do to try to find their Leors, who they think has been kidnapped?
There are many characters in Legends of the AMUN RA, but one of your main characters is a teenage boy named Leoros, who's fascinated by science, fiction, and comic books. That sounds similar to you. Is that true? Is that based on somewhat about you, Josh?
It's somewhat based on me. I mean, every character has a piece of me, and probably Leoros has the most of me. Leoros is a character whose father is a scientist and whose mother is an archaeologist. So he kind of grows up in a very science world, yet because he travels so much for his parents' work, he finds he's a loner. He doesn't have a lot of kids, kind of like an army brat, if you will. So he takes comfort in science fiction, comic books, and stories, and he kind of lives out a fantasy life in his head through heroes such as Superman and Batman. And when he gets the chance to become a hero, he finds out, it's a little bit more difficult than the movies make it out to be. And you've got real tough choices to make that hurt people.
Wow. And when you mention this it talks about the Civil War, the Vietnam War, can you kind of go a little bit detail about the Vietnam War, for example?
Well, the Vietnam War, obviously one of the biggest things is the difference between, like I said, unification versus annexation. And really it's a difference in perspective. If you're South Vietnamese, it's annexation. It's somebody conquering you. If it's North Vietnamese, it's a unification to you. So we talk a lot about the differences between what that is. And it might not be so much as a difference as a lot of people think because it's a point of view. It's one country either being taken over or being conquering another. So we talk a lot about the principles of good and evil, and it's very common terminology. But really, good and evil is, again, like anything, based off perspective. If what you're doing, you're always going to see yourself as the hero of your own story. And so everything matters from what point of view you're looking at it. So when we talk about the Vietnam War, we don't obviously specifically talk about it, but events that transpired to lead the country to war kind of play themselves out in the book. So, we talk about invading armies, brothers fighting each other, leaders of the armies were, brothers, and they take opposing sides, and how that splits apart the family. But it doesn't just split apart the family. These are two leaders of opposing factions, and they lead their factions to war against one another. So we talk a lot about religious beliefs too, because that's a very driving factor in a lot of civil wars. And in the story, it's kind of Egyptians versus Greeks, which is a metaphor for any religion that is opposing another religion, whether you're talking about our current war in Afghanistan and Iraq, or you're talking about the Vietnam War. Stuff like that plays itself out in the book.
So in this book, Leors. Destiny is tied to Atlantia. Is that how you pronounce the name of the character?
Atlantia. Her name is
a slave girl on the planet Potora who can see the future.
Correct.
How did you come up with this character, and what's her connection to Leors?
Atlantia was actually derived from Dominique.
Nice, Dominic.
She's
You
one
have
of
a
my
role.
inspirations.
And you're a slave? I didn't know that to him. Oh, good to know.
It's not a Princess Leia
Okay,
fantasy.
okay.
But the slavery part is actually from Greek history.
Mm-hmm.
Atlantia is from a town in the book called Messenia. In Greek history, the Spartans conquered Messenia and made them slaves.
Yeah.
But Atlantia herself, her principles, her core being, and her devotion to Leoris really came from a lot of inspiration of my wife and what she believes and her passion for helping people. The oracle part, not so much. She's not the fortune teller yet. but in ancient Greece, there were obviously oracles. And
Sound like the Matrix.
Yeah, in the Matrix. Have you ever seen the movie 300?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so
2 coming out soon, and I
Yes.
really liked the new actor, Sullivan Staples.
Yeah.
Aussie
Well, I hate to
actor.
burst your bubble. They didn't fight bare-chested in real life.
I know. No one.
But you remember he went and consulted the oracle.
Yes.
And
Yes,
you
yes.
know that is very prevalent. The fortune telling, the fact that dreams mean things
Yes.
in ancient Egyptian and ancient Greek culture. So Atlantia sees the future through her dreams, and there's always this mysterious guy in it, Leoris, and she doesn't know how she's tied to him until he shows up
Yes.
at her door, and she knows their destinies lie together. She just doesn't know how yet, and the whole story is kind of their relationship and how they figure it out.
Sounds very interesting. Dominic, cho những khán giả trẻ nào mà thích đọc những loại sách thần thoại này thì nếu mà các bạn khán giả muốn mua thì làm cách nào để tìm được tập 1 để mà mua Dominic? Can they buy on Amazon?
Yes, both of them are available on Amazon. Nếu mà các bạn hoặc là thế hệ trẻ mà muốn gặp George mà để làm book signing á, thì là tụi em sẽ tới cái show Kamikaze in tháng 11, tới cái 3 ngày là ngày 1, 2 và 3 của tháng 11.
Ok, trên thành phố Los Angeles.
Yes.
Và sau đó là có đi tính đi đâu hay không, hay là chỉ tham dự cái Kamikaze Festival trên đó, trên ngày 1, ngày 2, ngày 3 của tháng 11?
Yeah, tụi em thì plan out bao nhiêu cái trade shows để mình attend. Thì là hình như là the last 2 years thì tụi em đi khoảng 4-5 cái show a year, and we're gonna keep increasing. So depending on where they are and how relevant they are to cái series, thì we'll try the best to attend so that we can develop a brand, most of all. And of course, you can get the copies of the book on Amazon at any time.
Well, thank you so much, Josh, for coming here and share with our viewers what a great journey you've been doing, and I'm sure you're having a lot of fun along with your wife Dominic. Cảm ơn Dominic rất là nhiều đến đây để mà chia sẻ với quý vị khán giả cái tiến trình mà chồng của Dominic là Josh, nhà văn Josh Silverman đã viết xong, thưa quý vị. Và tôi nghĩ rằng đây là một trong những tập truyện mà các bạn trẻ nên kiếm để mà mua, để mà về đọc. Tại vì nếu mà cái này làm thành phim, tôi nghĩ rằng rất là hấp dẫn, rất là hay, thưa quý vị. That's it. Đến đây cho chúng tôi xin trân trọng kính chào tạm biệt tất cả quý vị khán giả, và xin kính chúc tất cả quý vị có một ngày thật là hạnh phúc và bình an.